So I want to address, if anyone's asked while watching the Inconvenient Truth, what are those CO2 wiggles on Gore's plot? What am I talking about? I think many of you have seen this reconstruction of atmospheric CO2 shown up on top. So this concentration of atmospheric CO2 reconstructed from glacial ice cores 800,000 years ago toward the present, running from right to left. The higher CO2 concentrations are occurring during interglacial periods, such as the interglacial period we live in, and the lower carbon dioxide concentrations are occurring during ice ages, as indicated in these two lower plots, which shows global ice volume inverted and Antarctic temperature. And Gore's main point was that CO2 is now, it's now above 410 ppm, has skyrocketed off this plot, is out of the envelope we've had for the last 800,000 years. But some of you may have wondered, why is CO2 going up and down like that prior to human activities? And there you go. And the answer, surprisingly, seems like it relates to what's known as the ocean's biological carbon pump. So what is the ocean's biological carbon pump? You have phytoplankton growing in surface waters, this light blue box at the top. The surface ocean is underlain by a vast, deep ocean interior, separated from it by the thermocline, which is the temperature gradient. Warm water is above, cold water is below, and this represents a density gradient. So you have phytoplankton growing up here, producing organic matter that sinks down into the deep ocean before it's broken back down to CO2. And this is effectively pumping CO2 out of the surface ocean and the atmosphere, which the surface ocean is equilibrating, and into the deep ocean, sequestering CO2 in the deep ocean. Now, phytoplankton in much of the ocean, the low latitude surface ocean, is most of the surface, the area of the ocean, is limited by nutrients. So phytoplankton need nutrients like nitrogen for their biomass. And as a result, they completely extract all the available nutrients, such as nitrate, the nitrogen form of nutrients, from surface waters. And so we're limited by that process. So the biological pump is limited by that process, with only slow resupply of nutrients from below. But this leaves out one key aspect of the biological pump, which is that it has a huge leak in the high latitude surface ocean, in particular, the Southern Ocean, which is shown down here. These colors are the concentration of that nutrient nitrate at the surface. So as I said, in the low latitudes, these regions here, these are very low nitrate concentrations, complete extraction of nitrate. But in the high latitudes, they're very high surface nutrients, which is a combination of very rapid resupply of water from below in the high latitudes, and also limitations on phytoplankton growth. And these things mean that the CO2 that was sequestered by the low latitude biological pump, the CO2 is able to escape back out of the ocean in the high latitudes. And the basic message I want to deliver to you today is that those lower CO2 concentrations during ice ages were due to, apparently, lower surface nutrient concentrations in these high latitude waters, reducing that leak, that high latitude leak in the biological pump, keeping more carbon in the ocean, and thus meaning less CO2 in the atmosphere. And one mechanism for this change in surface in surface nutrient concentrations in the high latitude ocean relates to something known as iron fertilization. I want to just take you through one piece of evidence with regard to this. So shown here is a sediment core from this region of the Southern Ocean where you find high nutrients. The map shows a reconstruction of dust flux into the ocean during the last ice age. It was higher for a number of reasons. And when we look back through time, we can see, so here's we're going to look at the last 150,000 years again. Here we have just that one cycle from that CO2 record that I showed you before, the previous ice age, the current interglacial, the previous interglacial here, the last ice age, and the current interglacial. When we look down here, we see in black a reconstruction of dust flux. So dust fluxes to the ocean were indeed higher during the ice ages. And at the same time, reconstructions of productivity show that during the ice ages, productivity was higher at this site during the last ice age. Iron is a key nutrient for phytoplankton in these high latitude waters. The background to this is really interesting, but with higher dust fluxes during the ice ages, you'd have more iron supply, potentially driving this higher productivity. And one last piece of confirmation of this comes from measurements that we make of organic matter that's within the shells of foraminifera that grow in the surface ocean, to reconstruct what the nutrient concentration was in the surface, with nutrient drawdown shown upward here in red. What you can see here is that when iron fluxes were high, productivity was high, and the degree of nutrient drawdown was high. And so this is telling us that because of iron fertilization, surface nutrients were more completely extracted from the ice age polar ocean, which meant a reduction in the leak in the ocean's biological pump. And that is one of the main contributors to these ups and downs of carbon dioxide over the glacial cycles that predated our ongoing very rapid rise in CO2 due to human activities. Thanks.